Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by my good friend, Rivals.com senior analyst, Clint Cosgrove. Like we always say, buddy, it is the best time of the week.
Best time of the week. Yeah, if you see me ducking down or grabbing stuff, I have a baby Bjorn with an infant in it right now. So trying to multitask. Wife had to run to an appointment. So wish me luck. Hopefully we get this through it. But we got a new member of the den, it looks like.
Yeah, we do. I'm excited about this, Clint. You know, I just like to roll the punches here. So I'm all about it. What's up, King Karsten? We are going to answer some questions from the Badgers Den here, and we are going to start with a question from Paisan. Paisan wants to know what the heck is going on with Penn State in the state of Wisconsin. How have they made all these inroads? They are grabbing kids from the state of Wisconsin all over the place. Like, what's happening here? How did Penn State all of a sudden become a recruiting powerhouse in the state of Wisconsin?
There's a lot of factors. I mean, they're a national recruiting program. They have the resources to recruit nationally. They have a profile that they're looking to win with. A lot of the Wisconsin, recruits from in-state, whether it be linemen or, the kid who I think he was from King, the receiver, tight end hybrid from, last year. They have a profile and they're going to recruit that. And there's brand recognition in Wisconsin. Kids grew up watching Penn State play against the Badgers. Anybody who's been out to Penn State and seen those 107,000 crazy whiteout fans, I mean, it's a spectacle. So I guess first and foremost, you got to make the inroads. And there's got to be someone with some type of connection in Wisconsin. But, just looking at their staff, like, Mike Yurchich, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, the offensive coordinator, he's a Midwest guy, Ohio ties. He was actually at St. Francis in Indiana, which I'm sure recruited Wisconsin pretty hard. So, he has those relationships over time, knows the schools. He was at Ohio State and Indiana in different roles as well. Now, Ty Howell is a guy that, when I was scouting, he was at Western Illinois and I worked pretty closely with him. He did a great job in Wisconsin. So he has those connections from his time at Western Illinois. And, he recruited Wisconsin hard. The Cody C. Anthony Poindexter, he was recently at Purdue. So, same type of footprint. And then I think you look at just the state of affairs, a coaching change, different philosophy towards recruiting, whatever it may be. And so they identified the guys that they did like, maybe, guys that they had some sort of connection to or connection, to the coach or school from previous recruiting. But, it's a national brand they can go to pretty much anywhere. And it's recognized in Wisconsin just because it's part of the conference. And so, and once you get that first guy, they did the same thing in Michigan, and then they've been really strong in Michigan since. And then when they got Cross last year, you got that Wisconsin guy. So you've got that, taste of home there. And, it can have a trickle down effect. But each year is going to be different. And obviously, as the Wisconsin staff establishes their presence within the state and identifies, the profile of the kid that they're going to recruit in state, added with, the work they're doing out of state, even in Pennsylvania.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I was going to say about Pennsylvania, Penn State's doing great in the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin's doing great in the state of Pennsylvania at the same time. I mean, you look at Emilio Ogard, Ryan Corey, Kevin Haywood, Kamir Prescott. I mean, they're basically trading players back and forth at this point, right? And so it's just really interesting. I think, obviously, the 2024 class is comparing the three guys from the state of Wisconsin who are going to Penn State versus the four guys from the state of Pennsylvania going to Wisconsin, at least at this point. It's going to be 3 years down the road. I am definitely going to be doing a redux, seeing what happens, seeing how each of these programs sort of fared in their effective trade of prospects. And now also just jumping off on top of that, Clint, recruiting just it's going to continue to get more and more national, and Wisconsin, and that also means high school kids are going to get more and more national. It doesn't matter where you're from. It used to be the wall around the state. You couldn't travel as much. You just didn't get film from as many of these guys from the state of Wisconsin to other programs. Between huddle, rivals camps, all of these other stuff, you are going to see kids from the state of Wisconsin going more places. I mean, some of these other top 2025 kids, you're looking at James Flanagan, Owen Strebig, both really big on Notre Dame. It looks like both those kids are probably going to end up at Notre Dame. Strebig's a huge blow, personally. I think he's one of the top offensive linemen in the nation for 2025. He's, he rivals 100 kid right there. But it's going to happen. It's a fact of life. And, Badger fans are going to kind of have to deal with that until, just going forward. It's just the way it is, Clint.
Yeah, I call it the globalization of recruiting. Everything is, right at your fingertips. Unlimited official visits now. Kids are going to be able to see as many places as they can. You've got 7-on-7 teams that are taking kids on trips across the country. So the more places you see, the more options you have. The harder it is to make a decision. It's like sitting down at Netflix and trying to pick a movie. You usually spend more time doing that than actually watching the movie itself. But I do think that this year is probably a one-off in terms of multiple players going to Penn State. But they do have that pipeline there. And then, if these guys have a good experience and have other friends that are talented and Penn State recruits, but it's not like Penn State's just going to walk into Wisconsin each year and take, a handful of top players. This year is kind of a one-off, an anomaly. And, will they get players from Wisconsin over time? Of course. James Franklin and that staff, they can recruit their butts off, and they have a lot of, advantages in the recruiting game. But I don't see this being a yearly thing.
Maybe Penn State continues to get like one guy a year, a guy or two every other year kind of thing. But I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see them getting 3-4 guys every year out of the state of Wisconsin moving forward. All right, let's move on to some other questions from the Badgers Den. First, we got Josh 0112358 wants us to break down Landyn Locke, the first commit for the 2025 class for the Badgers, little brother of Braden Locke. But Landyn has been talked about. He's a bigger kid than Braden. Braden's like 6'1". Landyn's definitely a bigger, like 6'3", a little bit stronger, I think, than Braden was coming out of high school. It's going to be really interesting to watch him develop in the next 2 years as Rockwell's starter for the varsity team. He's a really interesting prospect. We actually haven't broken down his tape yet here on BadgerBlitz TV. So let's do it right now, Clint. As we turn on the tape, what better time than now is right. As we break down the tape, Clint, let's just turn it on. What is the first thing that stands out to you about the younger Locke brother?
Well, when you turn on the film, you're going to look at the field, the facilities, the resources that they have. This is big time football. It's down in Texas. He's probably been playing in the same offense since he was in fourth grade. So, from a understanding of the game, a grasp of, defensive concepts, what you're going to get. And, just as far as polished from a mental standpoint. It's not going to be too big for him, and he's played against high level of competition. So you like that. He's long. He's got that long lever. We have him listed at 6'3", 180. As you see here, he's a mobile guy. And the thing you like about his mobility is he can, be incorporated into the QB run game like many quarterbacks. I don't think you're going to live and die with him in it, but his ability to move the pocket and to scramble with his eyes downfield. He's always looking for something downfield, because typically when you're scrambling, defensive backs are plastering. It's hard to keep on guys, especially if you're in a zone coverage, and then you're looking for the nearest threat. And, so a guy who can keep plays alive and move the pocket and keep his eyes downfield, that's a trait that I love. You see him do the QB run game here, very serviceable. And, it's just a guy like this. He's athletic enough to for defensive coordinators, you have to account for them in the run game. And I've talked about this before. I talk about it when I break down, athletic quarterbacks often. When you have a pro style quarterback who cannot run for 3 yards for the life of them, you do not have to account for them in the run game. They're a non-factor. So you're really playing with 11 defenders versus 10 offensive guys. When that quarterback is a running threat, and even if they're not a, run it for 200 yards a game running threat, but if it's a guy who, will participate in the QB run game and then will scramble, not only with eyes downfield, but for yardage, it dictates and limits your playbook. You have to call coverages based off, certain run supports that you're going to need with a mobile quarterback. It limits what you can do in your pressure packages. And so you love that he brings that to the table. Now, throwing style, I like him best on the move. He makes his best throws on the move. He can throw across his body. It just looks more natural to him. And I think that's why you see him roll out so much. Now, quick game wise, and there's going to be a lot of quick game stuff in the new Wisconsin offense. He's got a longer release. If you key on it closely, it's almost like a baseball pitcher. Now, it's a little more compact once he gets on the move, which you really like. So he's capable of doing that. But the release for quick game stuff would be my biggest concern about him. But overall production, poise on the field, the way he can move the offense, there's a lot to like here, and his best football's in front of him.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to add on top of that, Clint, is the fact that you talk about that long release. How do you drill a quarterback to change that, to get to a more compact release? Is it just, I don't want to say rote memorization, but just drilling it over and over and over and over and over again? Or as a coach, what are the things that you're trying to emphasize to get that more compact release that a lot of coaches seem to want?
Well, I've always kind of taken the stance, part of the evaluation is, I'm going to evaluate the mechanics and the release because that is important. But I also take the stand that you don't want to fix what isn't necessarily broken. I've seen plenty of quarterbacks ruined by their quarterback coach or a quarterback guru trying to get them to just change their release point for God knows what reason, a couple degrees. In that coach's mind, they think it'll make a big difference, but this kid's been throwing a certain way his entire life. So if he's capable of making every throw that you need him to, if he's capable of making them on time, if that long release is actually a quick release, that can change things too. So I wouldn't look to change it up too much unless you have to. But there are things you can do. Muscle memory, just trying different things and repping them over and over, just like anything else. But the hard thing with that is very few guys just automatically adapt overnight to throwing a different way when they've made it this far, being an elite quarterback because of the way that they threw, if that makes any sense. But you see it with a lot of baseball players. I'm not big at, I'm big with the footwork and the, just the utilization and body control and being efficient with your mechanics and following through and, keeping the ball tight and all of those things. But the release can be a touchy thing. And like I said, I've seen people have, their quarterback career ruined because someone felt they needed to change their release. So you don't want to mess with it too much. Some guys can do it, some can't. And the only way to find out is to get him in that offense and see what he's capable of. And then, coach him up like you would any other position. Try to coach what you don't like out of them and stress what you do want from them. And then rep it over and over and over again until you get it right.
I mean, Phil Longo, he just loves these Texas quarterbacks, man. I mean, they're developed. Between the ears, they are developed and they understand the game. It's wild. I mean, as a Wisconsin fan, it is so different to see just Longo going out and attacking, getting all these quarterbacks from Texas who, like you've mentioned, they've been playing in a spread offense, playing 7-on-7 year round, that kind of stuff. I mean, they've seen so much already by the time they get to college that, it's the college game isn't going to shock them as much as maybe some, some pro style kids from the upper Midwest who are, only playing one season. You have pros and cons to that, obviously, but it's just a very different approach that I personally am very excited to see. Speaking of excited to see, though, some of the top 2025 prospects for the Badgers, like Landyn Locke, he won't be there this weekend, but the Badgers are bringing in about a dozen guys this weekend. I'm calling it an advanced camp. Some big names, though, from across the Midwest, especially, and some guys up in your neck of the woods, Clint, from the Illinois area are going to be there. Your Jalen Williams, Nathaniel Marshall, guys like that, Gabe Kaminsky, all those kinds of guys we've talked about here on this show
like to have
before.
Those three.
Oh boy, yeah, get that defensive line really going. A couple in-state kids and Trey Poteet, Cooper Catalano, Michael Roski. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right quite yet, but there are two guys that our good friend Shootsman in the den, one of our number one contributors here, wants us to break down. Always got to love Shootsman. And so, you ask and we will deliver. The first guy we're going to talk about here is Nino Hill. He's a running back out of Canton, Ohio. And now in the Badgers camp earlier this summer, he was the MVP. Now, he doesn't have a ton of big time offers. He's got, a bunch of MAC offers right now: Toledo, Akron, Miami of Ohio. Interesting back. Bigger kid, listed at 6'2", 215. Clint, I'm curious to see what you think of him, because you see some of the traits that could make him a big time back, but I think he also has some areas that he's going to need to work on. For me, it's going to be top end speed that he, is going to be a thing that I would tell him to work on, do a lot of speed, some overspeed training and things like that. But let's turn on the tape here, and Clint, let's break down Nino Hill.
All right. Well, when I first turned on the film of him, he looks smaller than he's listed. So, when you're evaluating a smaller back, you're looking for different traits. When in actuality, this is a big 6 foot, 210, 215 pound kid, who can be a bruiser. I don't think they're recruiting him to hit the home run. They're recruiting him for that guy who can hit it between the tackles. And in the offensive sets that we are going to see in Wisconsin's new offense, you're going to get a lot more, 5-man boxes, and a bruising running back is hard to bring down when you're spreading the field laterally. So I think, as we've seen in this class, they're looking for different styles of back. You got your Darian Duprees, who are going to be able to be that true all-purpose. Then you've got your guys who are going to be, the thunder to that lightning. And if they continue with that path, I think we're going to get a thunder guy like this, a lightning guy like a Dupree at Wisconsin. And I'm trying to remember if I was at this game, actually.
Clint, you're all over the place, so it wouldn't surprise me. Now, I'm going to jump in here a little bit, though, while we're talking about this, because, you look at the offers, and the offer sheet doesn't blow you away. But, Clint, you and I were talking before we hopped on here about the importance of that in-person evaluation. And like I said, he was at the Badgers camp earlier this summer, and he walked away with camp MVP honors. How important is that in-person evaluation versus the film?
It's huge. It's huge. The film is a preview of what you're capable of. It's a preview of your production. It's a preview of your strengths. Sometimes weaknesses if the highlight film isn't done correctly, but that's really like your resume, your foot in the door. That in-person evaluation, that's what needs to seal the deal. And that is probably where I, feel most confident about him as a take for Wisconsin, is the fact that they worked him out in person. They have all of his measurables. They know exactly who he is, what they're getting, what he can do, what he can't do. And this is a staff that has done a great job evaluating over the years. They've done a great job of maximizing their talent. And, so regardless of what you see or don't see on film, You love the fact that they offered out of camp, and he had a great showing there, and he's a
Well, they
take
haven't
from
offered
camp.
yet. Now they
Oh,
haven't
they have
offered
not.
yet.
Okay.
They're not offered yet, but it would not surprise me if he walks away with an offer this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, then you wonder, okay, if he impressed at camp, maybe they're saying, okay, let's see how much size he put on in the offseason. Maybe we need him with this running style to get a little bigger. So the evaluation continued, and it will probably continue to continue. Then they might want to see 3-game film, unless he just walks in and looks like Adonis when he shows up on campus. But yeah, I mean, I think he can have a role. You look at the smaller offers, without seeing him play in person, without, having verified size like Wisconsin does. That's what I'd expect from a young running back like him. But the upside is there. I think you saw in some of those, the last couple plays, especially his vertical, the way he can move vertically and then stick his foot in the ground to, oh my God, the way he can move horizontally and then stick his foot in the ground to get vertically and burst immediately. That's a good trait. Guys who are going to be running between the tackles, they need to have that, those quick feet, that balance, and they need to be able to not just ooze, but they need to have a burst to go with that size, balance, and feet. So, yeah, he's a guy with upside. I think you continue to evaluate him, and I'm interested to see what happens when he shows up at campus this weekend.
Now, I'm going to say 2 things here. I've now watched his film 4 times in the last 24 hours. I prep.
You're
This is my job as a host. I prep. The first time I watched the film, I was not impressed. Having now watched it 4 times, it actually looks better and better and better every single time. So good on him. Secondly,
and the farther you get into it, the more you start liking it.
And I want to talk. That brings me to my second point. This is a larger PSA to all prospects who are putting film up there on Huddle. No one wants to see your touchdown celebrations. No one needs to see your touchdown celebrations. I'm glad you scored. But putting 30 seconds of a touchdown celebration in your film is wasting an evaluator's time. And so, personally,
it better be lit. It better be purely entertaining and like nothing you've ever seen before, because sometimes you only get 30 seconds to get your film watched.
And that's the thing. If you're going to do it, put it at the end of your film. But do it on your last highlight, because so I go back and I recut the film to take out these celebrations for you guys to watch, so you guys don't have to do it.
Perko's always doing the dirty work.
I have to do the dirty work because you viewers have a limited amount of time, and we appreciate you spending half an hour a week with us here on BadgerBlitz TV. And so I don't need y'all spending 3 of those minutes watching celebrations when we can be watching highlights. So
no question.
Recruits, coaches, please stop putting celebrations in your highlight tapes. I'm getting off my soapbox now to get on the soapbox.
I'm going to add something to that, because as you saw at the end of the play, a lot of time when players are making their highlight reel, they think the longer the play was, the better it was. Well, if you had a wide open hole, ran untouched, and should have outrun every defender on the field and get hawked after 50 yards, it's 50 yards on the stat sheet. But that's not a back that I necessarily am going to be, hot after. You got to, put your wow plays first. Those plays that, show what you are capable of, show your max potential. I'd rather see a guy make, break a tackle in the backfield, make a guy miss, then burst to the open field for a 15-yard gain than I would, what I talked about previously, running through a wide open hole for a 50-yard gain to only get chased down by a defensive lineman. So you got to keep those things in mind. You're trying to showcase the best of who you are, and you got to front load that tape. You talk about 30 seconds of celebration getting taken off. I'm turning the tape off after 5 clips if there isn't something that I'm intrigued by.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say this name one more time. I promise this will be the last time I say this name on this show. Oregon commit Dejon Riggs. If you want to watch a super well cut tape, go back and watch Dejon Riggs tape. Off my soapbox. Now let's talk about another Midwest prospect who's going to be there this weekend. He's not a bruiser, he's a burner, and it is Kamren Flowers from West Bloomfield, Michigan. Clint, now this guy gets on tape and he pops because, oh my God, can he fly? He's got a verified 10.6 electric 100. You know, Clint, you and I are big track guys. 10.6 as a sophomore. That was really, really impressive. Yet from last year, he's obviously a rising junior now. And Clint, I think Flowers is an absolute weapon in the return game and has the ability to be a game breaker as a receiver. So talk to us a little bit more about young Mr. Flowers.
I think you start with the return game and the speed. The thing that you like about him, a lot of track guys, they don't want to run into that traffic we see right there. They don't want to hit the hole. When you're returning kicks, you don't have a choice. You don't get to dance around. You've got to choose a direction and you've got to hit it as fast as possible. The thing that you liked on that first play there is he did hit it, and then he was able to change direction when he saw an angle that he knew nobody would be able to catch him at. He is that fast. You'll see it again here. He's just going to stretch the field, outrun everybody, outrun his blockers. There's really nothing you can do to stop him. And he, 10.6 is very good. But, he's the type of guy who could end up being in that 10.4 range, which it becomes, pretty elite speed. And I would argue that he plays faster with pads on maybe than his track times would even suggest, which are impressive.
Hold on. This is the play. This is the play that sold me when I turned on this tape the first time. This is one of the ones I love. We'll see a couple more, but he burns. He absolutely burns guys, and he knows, and he uses angles with that speed. It's not just straight line speed. He can see the angles. And to me, that is huge.
Yeah. To have great vision combined with speed, it's undefeated. I mean, this is a kid who can literally take the top off or take the short past the distance. He's a guy who I believe we have him as a 5.7 right now. As he develops, as he grows, as he becomes more polished, and he's at a big time program that puts out players. This is good football. He's got a chance, to enter that 4-star conversation. He doesn't have a huge frame. I mean, look at that balance there, and able to then get to straight to, full speed. I mean, that's a special trait. So you're going to want him to bulk up a little. He's not a guy you're going to want to send over the middle 20 times because he might get broken in half. But at the same time, he's a very young recruit, and he does have decent size. So, but definitely developing physically, I think that will make him faster, more fluid, and have better body control. That will come with, obviously physical growth and then development in a college program. But every team needs a guy who can take the top off like this. And there's no question that Flowers can. The one area that, sometimes like on that first kick return, you see him change direction, cut laterally, and then break vertically. There's other times where he kind of has to take a couple little steps, to make that cut. And maybe it's because he's running so fast at those times. I don't know. But if you could get that, kind of fluidity and body control to match the speed and the skill set, and really his ability after the catch. You saw a contested catch there, and he wastes little time turning and running, and he can make you miss in the open field. So he's a dynamic player. And, he'll be a very highly sought after kid, especially if he starts running those 10.4, 10.3 range as he progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited. And so I'm going to throw a quick last minute question here for you, Clint. So he's listed right now as one of the top 5 receivers in the Midwest on Rivals. And now we all know Talon Taylor is number 1. With good reason. Talon Taylor is a special prospect. There are 4 other receivers in the Midwest that I think you can make a case for being number 2 behind Talon Taylor, and that's Kamren Flowers, DeJarian Miller, Eugene Hilton, and Isaiah Mosey. Clint, out of those 4 guys, who do you think has the biggest upside at the next level?
Name them in order again. I know we got Mosey.
We got Mosey,
actually,
Eugene Hilton out of Indiana.
yeah,
DeJarian Miller out of, I believe, East St. Louis.
East St. Louis.
In Mosey.
He actually, I think, I don't know if this is public, so hopefully I don't get in trouble. I think he's transferring to Cardinal Ritter. So he'll be
in St. Louis.
Carson Boyd will be his quarterback if that is the case. I think they grew up playing together. So this is, if I had to choose one of those guys, I mean, Hilton, obviously, we went on a limb early with him, gave him 4 stars. The genetic profile, obviously, being T.Y.'s son, and then just his physical and athletic gifts. He's a really good player. Flowers, we talk about his speed and his ability to take the top off. And then we've got
Mosey.
Isaiah. So he's more of that, slot guy who can also split out, play the X. His dad played at Oklahoma. His dad's the head coach at Lee Summit North, which is loaded with players. And then DeJarian Miller, who is just the long, raw. If I had to just choose one, and this is an upside play, I'm going with DeJarian because this kid has the physical gifts to be very special. He is, he's long, he's athletic, and he's just so raw. I mean, as good as he is right now, he is so raw. And, he might not have as high of a floor as, say, a Mosey. Mosey's going to be he's going to be a productive player almost for certain, at the college level. I think DeJarian probably has the highest ceiling of the group. And that's what I really like about him.
Awesome. Well, with that alarm and with that timing, it is time for us to wrap it up here today on BadgerBlitz TV. We thank all of you for all of your questions in the Badgers Den over at BadgerBlitz.com. He is Clint Cosgrove at Rivals_Clint with King Karsten on the lap in the baby Bjorn.
King Karsten.
There he is. I am Matt Perkins. Tune in to Believe in Badgers with me and Matt Bernstein. We're back next week with Lamar Soup Campbell, which I'm very excited about for you guys.
Is he out in Seattle now?
He is in the front office for the Seahawks now. Yeah, we got him on one of his days off during camp. So I'm excited about that. We got a lot more coming up for you here on BadgerBlitz TV. And so thanks for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you in the den.